All right. Good morning. Welcome to this quarterly presentation of the Q2 results for Schibsted. It's relatively quiet here in Oslo. It's a beautiful day outside, but I think so there's not that many people with us here, but I think that even a larger group is following us on the webcast. So warm welcome to all of you. And here with me, Trond will give the presentation together with me, and then there are also some other senior representatives from management present. So the second quarter for Schibsted are really doesn't bring any big surprises. It's a good and satisfactory results, and I think we're delivering on all parts of our business. Online classifieds, important part there is that there is a solid growth in the core verticals. The display market has been a bit up and down in some of our bigger markets, but it's important that we deliver on the core verticals. France continues to do well on all big verticals. Finn continues to do well as well, and we'll get back and get more into the details. The losses in the investment phase have been reduced this quarter, as we have signaled earlier on, and further reductions are planned in the time ahead. Then at the last quarterly presentation, we announced the acquisition of 25% of the shares in OLX Brazil. That transaction has been closed towards the end of Q2, and I believe that positions are well for further growth in the years to come. Publishing, I'm proud of what they're doing on the product side, on the journalistic side. There's a lot of good development, and we're seeing also good and enhanced economic results from the publishing division this time. Then for Schibsted Growth, continue their expansion, and it's especially the Hitta is doing well. We've also managed to find now, I believe, a very good buyer for Hitta. All right, so the agenda looks like this, pretty much as normal. We'll start with the online classifieds. And here, first to give you an overview of some of the markets that we're in. So the blue bars shows you markets where we're either market leader or at least in a position where we do well and monetize. And there you can see the size, first the GDP of those countries. Then you see the digital ad spend in those countries with the source of eMarketer. It's $1 billion. You can see France, Italy, Spain, Sweden are all large markets that we're well positioned in. And then you can see the growth rates at the far right. Then the gray bars illustrates the investment phase markets that we're positioned in. So where we have emerging positions, but we're growing. And here you can see that especially Germany and UK, we've said that before, are of course the largest digital markets in Europe. And that's where Shpock has an interesting position and is set to develop in the years to come. And also Brazil and Mexico are of course interesting markets where we have the traditional classifieds concept. Right, so that's just to show you some of the market potential in markets we operate. Let's now get into the classifieds. Here you see that for the develop phase, there's a good development this quarter, 14% growth. That is, of course, in local currencies, adjusted for currency effects. And the EBITDA is also developing, I would say, as planned. Investment phase is continuing to grow, and then you can see that the loss there is lower than it has been in the corresponding quarters the two previous years. It's also lower than it was in the first quarter, as we've said earlier on. All right, let's go to France. Just visited Le Bon Coin last week. I'm very pleased with what I see of their developments. They continue to do well in all the verticals. And motor and real estate are, of course, the biggest one for them. And they have a very positive development in both of those. Then you may remember that last year they really positioned themselves to start to charge for job advertisement. And that has actually at least met our expectations. And they seem to be able to take an interesting part also of that market. Margins can vary from quarter to quarter. This quarter has a high margin, and that is because we've had limited marketing spend in this quarter. But then the important thing is that we continue to develop the site, and we've hired more people this quarter, mainly to sales and customer support. Then, perhaps the most important of all is that we're, of course, continuing to work on the product. And we've seen a positive traffic development for leboncoin in the last quarter. And now we are rolling out new features to that product, especially messaging alerts and in-app message services, notifications. That is planned to be rolled out in the third quarter, and also a performance dashboard for professional customers. That is an important thing, just to make the whole experience of classifieds more complete, and to give the professional sellers better tools to handle their inventory. Here is an illustration where you actually can see the great position that leboncoin enjoys in France. So you can see the car market on the left-hand side. There you see the market share for among dealers, and also the market share in professional advertisement, and as well as traffic. On the right-hand side, similar figures when it comes to real estate, and you can see that the numbers we're having in terms of volume are fantastic. And I believe that in revenues there's more to come, and that we have a good position to develop also the revenue market shares further in the years to come. Spain, next. Well, Spain is of course a challenging market with strong competition. What is going really well there now is jobs. The employment rate has gone up in Spain, and that is helping InfoJobs, or more important, InfoJobs is helping people, especially young people, to get into the workforce, which is a great thing. And then we're also seeing that the cars revenues has developed very good this quarter. And of course, now we're seeing the benefit of being able to cross-sell cars across the Coches and the Milanuncia sites, in addition to Vibbo. In real estate, there is strong competition, as noticed earlier. So we will focus on developing our product, implementing new features, as well as market share for Fotocasa. And we continue to expect some pricing pressure there. And then the acquisition we announced before just around Christmas, the Habitaclia acquisition, is doing very well in their region. And we believe it's important to invest here in the long term. That's why we've seen continued high marketing spend. All right, let me move on to Norway, to Finn, another great quarter for Finn. We can see that they're doing well in all the key verticals, especially jobs. The Norwegian economy is going well, and Finn is helping people find jobs. And real estate has also had a great first half. And so those two are the ones that are really growing the fastest right now. Then personal finance part of Finn, Lendo, has also done well. And margin will vary, as I said, from quarter to quarter. Of course, for those of you who live in Norway, you've seen an extremely strong presence of Finn everywhere around you. And this has, of course, to do with this competitive situation, where we see some other players, especially one native app player, has pushed really strong in the Norwegian market. So what Finn has done is really to not only defend their position, but continue to grow. So we're pushing both Shpock and Finn aggressively in the marketplace. And I'm happy to see that that is given very good results for us. So Finn is really the growth winner in this market the first half year. But of course, that affects the margins when it comes to from quarter to quarter when it comes to marketing spend. But what's really great to see that Finn, an established player, is continuing to grow very well. Sweden has been more challenging for us the first half year. We continue to do well in cars. We also do well in jobs. Then we're still finding our way what to do in the real estate market. So we've phased down our efforts there, and that is affecting the revenues. And it's also been a relatively slow display market in Sweden this year. And of course, this looks worse than it is for Blocket, because Service Finder, the marketplace for services, has had a tough first half year. That's affecting the total numbers. Adjusted for that, then Blocket in itself had a growth around 3%, and also a somewhat better margin. But we believe that what we're seeing with the Service Finder is that we have Mittanbud in Norway that's really doing well and continue to grow. We believe we'll find a role also for that for Service Finder in Sweden. Right, then go to some other developed markets. Here you can see a portfolio of other important markets for us. And it's a little bit of a mixed development when it comes to growth, because what we're seeing in Austria has continued to do well and is growing well on all verticals. I think especially jobs and houses is doing well. And Italy, we're doing very well in cars. Now, there's a slower growth rate in Ireland, and that affects the aggregate number. And in Ireland, we're the market leader in real estate. And real estate market has been good, but the volume or the prices have come up in Ireland now after many years with a tough market. But the volume has gone, there hasn't been that many objects for sale. That affects the volume. That affects the growth rates of Ireland. Right, let me move on to the investment phase. And here you can see that we have reduced the investment phase EBITDA to negative from first quarter till the second quarter as expected. The important thing here is OLX Brazil is on track. And then we continue to spend money on Shpock. We believe Shpock has very good prospects. And we spent money in Norway, Sweden, and Italy, in addition to UK and France. And we believe that is money well spent. But we continue to with the outlook for total investment phase. Let me also highlight Brazil. Brazil, that was effective as of July 1st, our increased stake from 25 to 50%. And I'm very excited about Brazil and OLX, although it's tough macroeconomic situation in the country, and that has been the case for a couple of years. You can still see that OLX is very well positioned. So if you look in the car market, you see that they are really dominant when it comes to the number of private cars. And if you look at the real estate, you can see that our online market sites for real estate and cars, I believe there's still a lot of migration to be done in those markets. So I think those figures looks promising. Also, OLX is then expected to reach break even during second half of 2017. I mentioned Shpock. Let me mention Shpock again, because Shpock is doing well in the markets they're operating. And what's good with Shpock, it's a native app that, and you see several native apps, and I believe that Shpock has really been one of the front runners developing that market. And it's a native app which is very user-oriented, very easy to use, that also take care of the transaction. Or you can do the communication and also close the transaction, and it's geo-based. It's very user-friendly, and what we've seen in most markets is these kind of services then help expand the total market. And here you can see the position in the UK market, where we actually passed Gumtree, the market leader. in-app usage and are also closing in on overall traffic. And we can see then, especially in certain segments, that we pass them and have the most objects and also the most traffic. So what we're now looking into is to attract professional sellers to this, and we have started experimenting. We'll continue to do that in the time to come. So that's the classifieds portfolio. Let me now spend some minutes on the media houses. And as I said, we're very proud of what we're seeing. Our media houses, keep that in mind, have of course had to reduce their editorial departments the last years, but they continue to deliver very well, both in terms of product and journalistic achievements. And I'm proud to see that Schibsted is used as an example also internationally, and that we win several prizes. So this was the prestigious INMA Award in New York recently, where there you see the editor-in-chief of Aftenposten, Espen Egil Hansen. He won the Best in Show, and that was from his open letter to Mark Zuckerberg, who gained a lot of attention around. And Schibsted also took home several other prizes. Then here's another example from a big article and a series of articles in Stavanger Aftenblad called Glassjenta, which was recently awarded the big journalism prize here in Norway. So a lot of positive development going on journalistically. And we're also seeing actually a positive development here then, because this is the total publishing operations for Scandinavia. And you can see that there is a positive development in margin. The important part here is really that the digital subscriptions continue to go up, and that is an important backbone for the future development. I would especially like, when it comes to economic performance, to highlight VG in this quarter, because you can see that they're growing their revenues, and digital subscriptions is starting to count to be more important for VG, and then they've done especially well in the digital ad market. And you can see mobile and web are leading drivers behind that, and I think now the web TV is actually several months past the paper edition when it comes to revenues per month. And then when the operating expenses also then are kept under in good check, then you see that a very positive margin development this quarter in VG. I think that's impressive. And if you look at how much VG has been growing then, they've been growing as much as some of the international giants. And I'd like to just spend a couple of minutes on that, because keep in mind that for digital ads, we're developing new things and doing many new products, but it's a tough market we're operating in. And here you can see that here are some estimates of the digital ad market in Norway last year. It would be a similar picture in Sweden and many other countries, where you see that Facebook and Google, although these are rough, these are estimates, really have a very, very strong position. And what we have asked for is to have a level playing field. So we think it's unfair that these giants take out huge money from the local advertisement market without having to pay tax. And what we're seeing now is that in some of the larger countries, the authorities are not accepting that anymore. So the UK is striking some deal with Google. Australia is passing a new law, and France has tried and had a course tried in the court recently, which they lost, but they still continue to work on it. And I think it's important to draw the attention from authorities and others to the fact that so much money is going out from local advertising money, and they're not being taxed. And of course, there are several other effects also that how these giants affect our markets. And you have seen that Google is now strong on the antitrust case. and there is a fine here regarding Google Shopping. We have our own prisjakt that might have been affected by this, so we're looking into the consequences of that. Then there's lots of things happening on the regulatory front in EU, and I think they have great intention with the new e-privacy regulation, both in terms of protecting consumers and also creating level playing fields. We are, however, afraid that some of those proposed e-privacy regulation could actually have the opposite effect, in that they're allowing some of the bigger companies to become gatekeepers for how people share their data on the net. And that's something we're talking to politicians about, and I think it's also important to have attention on this subject in the media. All right, then Schibsted Growth. A few slides on that. Schibsted Growth continue their positive development in this period, especially Lendo. And then we have the news also today is that we have agreed to sell Hitta to a consortium of investors and management. Hitta, we've been the owner of that company since 2005, and they've done very well, and it's a great company. I think that the new consortium with management as part owners will be a good owner for it. For us, it allows us to focus further on our core operations. And the big star in the growth portfolio is then Lendo, which is a marketplace for consumer loans, and it allows those who are not it creates transparency in a market that traditionally has been difficult to operate in, so it's good for consumers. I believe it's also good for banks, as it creates a good and effective marketplace. Lendo is doing well, as you can see, exceptionally well in Sweden, also doing well in Norway, and we've also launched it now in Finland, and that looks promising. Right, so I think that is here where I stop my highlight of the operations, and then I'll turn it over to you, Trond, to take care of the finances.
Thank you, Rolv Erik. If you look at the split in the online classifieds, it is evident that is the verticals that stands for, so to say, the core earnings and the growth. And also, if you look at the growth rate in second quarter, it is no doubt that verticals accounting for 18% of the growth. Display advertising, the change that we have seen in the market, more to programmatic, etc., has certainly been more challenging. We are doing a lot of actions in order to mitigate that, with our AppNexus product being rolled out in Norway, later in Sweden, and also being rolled out in France. So clearly we will do what we can to come up with the better product and intent in the display part. So, and also going forward, we do expect, as Rolv Erik mentioned, that a lot of new product and features, both within motor and real estate, will be launched over the next coming months. If you look into the second quarter income statement, we have a 5% top line growth, and I think this is a good quarter. We have gross operating EBITDA of 880 compared with 831. And you can see that we have continued to invest, first of all, I would say, in Shpock and native app, fighting back, let go in markets like Norway and Sweden. That has, of course, also some impact on our figures in the second quarter and first half. But we do see strong traction, so we think there is hope that we also can take those investments somewhat down as a result of a very good and strong development. If you look at the figures, we have a slight increase in depreciation amortization, increased activity, first of all. And then you see that we have also a positive development from the losses of JVs, meaning that they're now approaching more a break-even position in in several countries. And then, of course, we have a huge income from then selling Asia, around 800 million from Asia, and the rest coming then from Chile. There is actually a technical revaluation according to IFRS. And net financial, we have some losses on Brazilian real, and then, of course, profit before taxes substantially up from last year. If you look at the breakdown comparison between 16 and 17, you see that we continue to deliver in France, and happy to see good top-line growth and healthier margins. Also in Norway, we have a good top-line growth. We have continued, as I said, to invest significantly in marketing. That has, of course, put a little bit pressure on the margins in Finn. In Sweden, I would say that the underlying verticals goes well, but it is a sluggish and difficult display market that actually has reduced the earnings from Sweden, also a little bit combination with marketing expenses. And Spain and others continue to do well, but also there we have done some marketing efforts. The media houses clearly continue to do well. If we then look at the different countries across our portfolio, the trend continue as we have seen, I would say, for some quarters. France continue with the top-line growth of 19%, EBITDA margin 62%. Norway, 13% top-line growth and 43% margin. Again, marketing investments, as we said. Display ads explain Sweden, are more flattish development. And then Spain really now see a pickup in the job market and also in the car market. Still challenging, of course, in the real estate and also we have done some marketing effort in the real estate and in the generalist part. If we are looking at the guidance going forward, we do see reduced investments. We continue to see good revenue growth going forward, and we remain with the same target as we have had with 15%-20% top-line growth over the next 3 to 5 years for the online classifieds. And our aim is certainly to continue now to improve the operational leverage in the business and capitalize on significant investments that we have done in several markets. And as we have said on the online classified investments phase, it is expected to go down compared with 16. And it also will go down sequentially quarter by quarter. And this guidance is unchanged. It is also due to the fact that we do see good traction on, first of all, the native app. That is, of course, has been quite significant in our investments. Within the product and tech, we have also then, if you look at the cost of the first half 17, we expect also cost to be at approximately the same level for the second half of 17. And CapEx, as we have said, will be around 100 million up compared with 16. If you look at the key financial figures, you see that we have had a good cash flow from operations. It was particularly strong in Q2 last year due to some little bit special effects there. So this quarter is more seasonally normalized when it comes to cash flow and working capital, which is somewhat seasonal, a little bit negative in Q2. If you look at our net interest-bearing debt, we now have a ratio of 2.5 net interest-bearing debt over EBITDA, which is in line with what we expected after having closed then the LATAM deal. So I think that we are in a good position to also improve these figures going forward. And our aim is to get back to a more normalized ratio of between 1 to 2, as we are a growth company and would like to have a fairly healthy balance sheet. And we have also done refinancing, successful then bond issue, and we will also do some refinancing of the bank facilities during the autumn. We have an underlying tax rate of 30%. As I said, we are prudent on the tax calculations, then not accounting for the losses in the investment phase that we have in several countries, and that benefit will certainly come in the future. So I think that concludes my part, Rolv Erik, and for you to conclude on highlights.
I think you just remain up here because let's have some open up for questions. I think not any big news from us this quarter. We continue to work towards our strategic goals. Online classifieds is broadly going very well. Also in publishing, we're seeing an interesting and good quarter for us. And then we see that the Schibsted Growth has further growth potential in the years ahead. So I think I'll just open up for questions, both here from in this room or from the webcast. Here are a few questions. Preben first okay, here is on the back.
Yes, Axel from ABG. So first of all, congrats on a good quarter. But I have a question on the display advertising revenue, and we saw that it was quite weak this quarter. You have previously been talking about the AppNexus collaboration and the programmatic. And can you try to give us some pointers on when we can expect the AppNexus collaboration to really bear fruits for Schibsted, and when can we see the effect on the display advertising revenue? Is that sort of a H2 17 case, or will it take longer time?
So AppNexus is implemented in Norway and France. We're doing it also now in Spain, and then Sweden will come. I think we're seeing already during second quarter positive effects here in Norway. We're seeing that we have new products such as geo-based advertising that's working well for across the portfolio. And in France, the market has been a bit difficult. And things have been somewhat delayed, but we're seeing a positive development from those products, and I expect that to continue in the second half. But we cannot control the market conditions, total market conditions, and they have been difficult in France this quarter. So we have not lost market share in France. It's just been a more difficult quarter in total. So the market conditions will of course be the most decisive factor.
Okay, thank you. So just a follow-up question on that. So you would say that the market conditions is the primary reason for the low growth in display advertising revenue, not so much as, for example, the shift to programmatic type of advertising?
Yes, but I think you have to look at it even more granular, look from market to market. So in some markets we've done well. For instance, Italy is growing very well on display advertisement. France has been a slow market. In Norway, VG has done very well. Finn has not done that well. That is due to their products, and they are developing new formats. So it's both has to do how quickly can we develop new products and how is the general market conditions.
Okay, thank you.
Preben Olsen, Carnegie. Two questions. First on Finn and marketing spend. Just to specify, will that remain high also going into the second half, or should we expect the marketing spend in Finn to come down in the second half?
I think we've said that we do what is necessary to win in our markets, and I think I'm very happy with the development we're having in Norway. So that will depend partly on how the competitive scenario plays out. But obviously it's been relatively high this quarter. I think it's a bit early to say what's going to happen in the second half.
And secondly, in France, you're showing extremely strong volumes and market shares in real estate. But based on what we learned from Axel Springer's Capital Markets Day, you are getting far less paid per your ads in real estate. So the question is this something you change throughout the year, or is this something you change every December when you have your annual negotiations?
Well, just to a few words on France there. So it's true that especially in the rich and wealthy Paris region, they take out, Zellogé takes out a significantly higher price than us. I think we have to be realistic. That will take some time before that changes. And then I think that we are getting additional euros from our ads, and we're happy with that. When it comes to the timing of the price adjustment, you want to comment on that, Trond?
No, but it's typically an upsell of yearly contract during Q4 that will be into then 18. So I think we are now just looking into the product mix and what to do on the price. So that will be something we will come back to later.
Here's another question in the middle of the room.
Fredrik Steinsen from Pareto Securities. First of all, congrats on good results this quarter. Question with regards to the marketing spend that you had in Scandinavia, with kind of as a response to Letgo's push into the market. Do you see that your response is yielding the results that you expect and hope to see? What can you tell us about?
Well, absolutely. Yes, they are. And so I think that in Norway, both Finn has been by far the leader, both when it comes to app downloads and also in listings. And we see that also Shpock has passed the competition in terms of downloads. And so I would say that it's definitely given us the effect that we had expected.
Thank you.
Okay, here's one from the webcast.
Okay, we have a few topics that are being raised from the webcast. Can you be a bit more specific on the strengthened efforts to develop vertical products that were mentioned as part of the guidance for second half?
Yes. So is that specifically in France or the market?
I think that was related
General.
to the comment generally. That,
Yes, I think what is important for us is to develop professional tools for the sellers, so for real estate brokers and for recruiters, and of course for car dealers. So we're constantly trying to make their lives easier by providing better tools. What now we're working on, that will be rolled out in the second half, is dashboards where they can follow all their ads and see how effective they are, or what kind of responses they're getting, and what kind of ROI they get on the investment. So that is one example. We're also looking at how we can assist them with some kind of valuation tools. And we're looking at also at some other things. You want to elaborate, Trond?
I think you've been to the main things. We do see that our core products, like in Norway and France and Sweden, we do see there are many ways to capture further revenue and also over time be able to raise our ARPU. So it's a mix of product improvement and then seeing further revenue growth in these markets. So we are looking what is the best in class within the classifieds and really striving hard to, of course, be a part of that best in class type of products.
So in Sweden, for instance, we're working hard on, we're launching now a new ways for car dealers to expose themselves clearer on Blocket and Byt bil in a way that we have done in Norway called Utvidet prospect, and that seems to be very well received.
Okay, following up a little bit on leboncoin and France, you referred to new products in the second half, specifically on France, in-app messaging, alerts, and so on. Will this put pressure on margins, or is that spending and preparations for that already behind us?
No, that shouldn't affect the margins.
Okay, a couple of more from the webcast. When you talk about Brazil, how would you see the competition in the real estate market? You have a player called Zap Immoveis. How do they compare with OLX in terms of position?
No, I think that's a good question, and that is obviously a strong competitor who's been there for a long time and seems to have an established position. So I think that realistically we're playing a bit the same game there as we're doing in France with a volume, and where we're starting out with a big private volume, but then rapidly also increasing among the professional, and I think France is an example where you see that there is another player and that we're still making good money, and I expect that a similar scenario could play out in Brazil.
There is a little bit different nature of the Brazilian real estate market. A lot of it is, of course, in new construction, so it's a little bit different. And also today, a lot is in the print. So we do see actually that there could be some structural changes over time here that really could benefit the online players.
Okay, a couple of more, if I may. Looking at Spain, can you comment on the development versus Wallapop and specifically their interest in the car market, and how do you see that threat?
I think Wallapop has done well when it comes to volume, especially in the generalist market. I notice they're also pushing into the car, and as far as I understand, they have delayed the monetization effort somewhat. So far, we haven't noticed anything when it comes to monetization. I think they're expanding the market, but we're obviously following closely what they do.
All right. Could you please share some thoughts around Facebook Marketplace, how they are progressing, and also there's a specific question on that when it comes to UK versus the development on Shpock.
So Facebook groups have been in all our markets for many years, and they're big if you combine them. So the Facebook Marketplace app, which launched in the US, we compete directly against that in the UK with Shpock. We have not noticed that has had any effect on the Shpock development. In fact, it's been growing at the same pace after that app was launched. So we believe that is also then contributing to enlarging total markets.
Okay, last one for now. Can you give us a sense as to the price received for Hitta?
Well, we have agreed with the buyers that we don't disclose the sales price. For Schibsted, it's not so sensitive, of course, but Hitta is contributing around 60 million SEK on a yearly basis, EBITDA. And we have got, I would say, healthy multiples on that sale. So we're happy with it. And for us, it is to streamline the business and focus on our core operations in the Swedish market.
There's a question there in the back here.
Sigurd Sanna, stockholder. A little part of the presentation was about journalistic achievements. And my question is, this is election this September, 1st September in Norway. What is Schibsted's position before this election? And I think about the social media is very important for the politic because a real important part of the Schibsted company is journalistic politics. So why don't you are more active, for example, at Twitter? Your articles are you don't publish for comments on Twitter in very 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 small way. Why are you not more active?
You mean the journalists and the editors?
No, your articles are not available at Twitter for comments. Very very few of them. But you have a strong position and a strong you see achievements. You have strong meaningar, also meanings about politics. you publish it all the time in the public room, but why don't you publish it on Twitter for all of us can comment on your position?
Well, first and foremost, Schibsted doesn't have any position in front of the election. We have completely independent editors. That's the way it always has been and will be. And it's really also up to the editors then to decide what they share in social media, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, and or Snap or whatever. It's up to them where they share their content. So I'm afraid I cannot give you any further response than that. All right. Seems like we've... here's Kjersti.
Kjersti Løken Stavrum in the Tinius Trust. Compliments on the good results. You just briefly mentioned when you talked on the EU antitrust case against Google, you mentioned that you were looking into the consequences, possible consequences of that for Prisjakt. Could you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Well, Prisjakt is also a service that can be a competitor to the Google shopping service, because we provide price comparisons. So what we're looking into now is whether the way that Google has apparently given priority to their own service, how that potentially has harmed our service, and what consequences in form of higher costs, etc., we've had because of that. So that's what we're looking into, and when we conclude, then we have to see whether we take some action on that. All right, here's one more question. I think we need to wrap up.
Okay, the final one. Could you please elaborate on the increased investment spending in product and tech in 2007, how that will evolve into 2018 and beyond, in terms of less duplication of efforts, and how this will result, and whether this will result in higher cost in subsidiaries?
Well, I think that what we have said is that we really believe in taking out duplication going forward within the product and tech. And so it's a question how fast are we able then to actually seeing that follows through in our P&L. I think that we expect 18 to see some effect. I will be hesitant to give too much guidance now, as we are just in the planning phase, going into that now during the autumn, and we have to come back to that to be more specific on it.
Okay. I think then it's time to wrap up here. Thank you so much for coming. I would remind you that we have also an investor conference on the telephone at 2 o'clock this afternoon. So thanks for coming, and have a good day. Thank you.